The lubricant in Nina's gym bag wasn't mine. I stared at the small bottle tucked between her yoga mat and protein powder, my coffee growing cold in my hand. 22 years of marriage, and I'd never seen this brand before. Hell, we hadn't needed lubricant in months. Our bedroom had become as exciting as a tax audit. "Alex, you ready?" Nina called from downstairs, her voice sharp with impatience. "I need to get to the office early today." I slipped the bottle back where I found it, my hands trembling slightly. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe she'd bought it optimistically, hoping we'd rekindle something. But the expiration date told a different story. It was nearly empty. Nina Pierce stood in our kitchen, immaculate as always in her tailored black suit, scrolling through emails on her phone. At 38, she still turned heads at Brandforge, the advertising agency where she'd climbed to VP of accounts. Her blonde hair was pulled back in that severe bun she favored for important meetings. "You look nice," I said, studying her face for any tell. "Thanks." She didn't look up. "Don't wait up tonight. Mark wants the whole accounts team to stay late and prep for the Morrison Industries presentation." Mark Foster, her boss, the golden boy CEO of Brandforge, 47 years old, married to his college sweetheart, drove a vintage Porsche, and had the kind of easy charm that made clients write seven-figure checks. I'd met him at company parties. The type of guy who remembered your name, but forgot you existed the moment you left his sight. "Another late night," I said carefully. "That's what, 4 this week?" Nina finally looked up, her green eyes flashing with irritation. "It's called having a career, Alex. Some of us are still climbing instead of coasting." The dig hit its mark. My own career as a creative director had stalled 3 years ago when I lost the Midwest Motors account. Since then, I'd been handling smaller clients, watching younger creatives get the plum assignments. At 41, I was becoming advertising's equivalent of a bench warmer. "Right," I said. "Climb away." She grabbed her keys and briefcase, pausing at the door. "I might be out of town this weekend. Mark's organizing a team retreat at his cabin up north." "Sounds cozy." "It's work, Alex." But she wouldn't meet my eyes. After she left, I sat in our pristine kitchen, surrounded by granite countertops and stainless steel appliances that screamed suburban success. Everything looked perfect from the outside, just like our marriage. I called in sick to work and spent the morning doing something I'd never done before, investigating my own wife. Her laptop was password protected, but Nina had always been predictable. I tried her birthday, our anniversary, our son Theo's birthday. Nothing. Then I tried Mark Foster 2024, and the screen unlocked. My stomach dropped. The email thread was right there in her recently opened files. Subject line, weekend plans. The messages were carefully worded, professional on the surface, but I'd written enough advertising copy to read between the lines. Looking forward to our private strategy session. Bring the presentation materials we discussed. Can't wait to work closely with you. But it was the calendar entry that made everything crystal clear. Team retreat, Mark's cabin, for this coming weekend. When I clicked on the attendee list, only 2 names appeared, Nina Pierce and Mark Foster. I printed everything. The rest of the day passed in a haze. I walked through our house like a ghost, seeing 22 years of marriage with new eyes. The family photos on the mantle suddenly looked staged. The wedding picture in our bedroom seemed like evidence of a crime I'd been too stupid to solve. By evening, I'd made a decision that would have seemed impossible that morning. I drove to Rick's bar on the south side of town, a dive that served honest whiskey and minded its own business. Rick Kowalski had been my best friend since college, an ex-ad man who'd quit the rat race 5 years ago to buy this place. "You look like hell," Rick said, sliding a bourbon across the scarred wooden bar. He was built like a linebacker gone soft, with graying hair and eyes that had seen enough broken dreams to fill a cemetery. "Nina's having an affair." Rick didn't seem surprised. He poured himself a drink and leaned against the bar. "With who?" "Her boss, Mark Foster." "The pretty boy with the Porsche?" "That's him." I pulled out the printed emails. "They're going to his cabin this weekend. Just the 2 of them." Rick read through the pages, his expression darkening. "This is some grade A bullshit, Alex. What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet." I drained my bourbon. "But I'm not going down without a fight." "You thinking divorce?" "I'm thinking revenge." Rick raised an eyebrow. "Revenge how?" I thought about the lubricant in Nina's gym bag, about the weekend retreat, about 22 years of marriage dissolving into carefully worded emails and fake team meetings. I'm still working on that part. Thursday night, Nina packed for her retreat, while I pretended to watch television. She folded clothes with military precision, including lingerie I hadn't seen in months. Black lace. Victoria's Secret tags still attached. New underwear? I asked casually. I bought some things for myself. Is that a crime? Of course not. You should feel confident during your presentations. She shot me a sharp look, but said nothing. Friday morning, I waited until Nina left for work, then made my move. The gym bag sat in our bedroom closet like evidence in a murder case. I found the lubricant exactly where I'd left it, nestled between her yoga clothes and protein bars. I'd spent the previous evening at a hardware store, studying adhesives with the focus of a graduate student. The plan was simple, elegant, and completely insane. I unscrewed the cap of Nina's lubricant and carefully poured the contents into a separate container. Then I refilled the bottle with something else entirely, medical-grade adhesive that looked identical but would create a very different kind of intimate experience. The irony was perfect. If Nina and Mark wanted to stick together, I'd help them out. I screwed the cap back on and placed the bottle exactly where I'd found it. My hands were steady now. The trembling from yesterday had been replaced by something colder, more focused. At work, I went through the motions of my job while planning Phase 2. I had access to Brandforge's client database through a shared system we used for collaborative projects. It took me 20 minutes to find the contact information for Morrison Industries' head of public relations, Janet Walsh. I crafted an anonymous email with a subject line concerning Brandforge leadership conduct. I didn't send it yet. Timing would be everything. That afternoon, I drove to Mark Foster's neighborhood, an upscale development where the houses started at $500,000 and the driveways showcased German engineering. Mark's house was a modern monstrosity of glass and steel that screamed new money. His pride and joy sat in the circular driveway, a pristine 1967 Porsche 911 in racing green. I'd done my research. Mark had bought the car at auction for $80,000 and spent another $40,000 on restoration. He'd been featured in Classic Car Monthly, posing next to it like a proud father. The car would be perfect for Phase 3. That evening, Nina kissed me goodbye with lips that felt like ice. Have fun at your retreat, I said. Learn lots of new techniques. I will. She grabbed her gym bag without looking at me. Don't wait up Sunday. We might run late. After she left, I called Rick. It's showtime, I said. You sure about this, Alex? Once you cross this line, there's no going back. I crossed the line the day I married a liar. Saturday morning, I drove north to Mark's cabin. I'd found the address in Nina's printed emails and confirmed it with a quick Google search. The place was a monument to masculine fantasy. Log construction, wraparound deck, positioned on a private lake surrounded by pine trees. It probably cost more than most people's houses. I parked a quarter-mile away and hiked through the woods, carrying a small bag of supplies. Through the trees, I could see Mark's Porsche, parked next to Nina's BMW. Smoke rose from the chimney. They were definitely inside. I settled behind a fallen log with a clear view of the cabin and waited. At 2:47 p.m., the show began. The first sound was Nina's voice, raised in what could have been passion or panic. Then Mark's voice joined in, but instead of ecstasy, I heard confusion, then alarm, then outright fear. What the hell? Mark's voice carried clearly across the water. Nina, I can't move. Neither can I. Oh God, what's happening? The sounds that followed were a symphony of panic, shouting, cursing, what sounded like furniture being knocked over. I pulled out my phone and started recording. 20 minutes later, they were still stuck together, their voices hoarse from yelling. I'd heard enough creative profanity to write a dictionary. That's when I decided to make my entrance. I walked up to the cabin's front door and knocked politely. Hello? Is everything all right in there? I'm with the Forest Service, doing routine safety checks. The voices inside went dead silent. We're fine, Mark called out, his voice strained. Just having a meeting. I heard shouting. Are you sure you don't need assistance? More whispered conversation, then Nina's voice. We're okay. Please go away. I'm afraid I can't do that, ma'am. Regulations require me to verify everyone's safety. I tried the door handle. Unlocked. I'm coming in. The scene that greeted me was better than anything I could have imagined. Mark and Nina were tangled together on the leather couch, both partially clothed, both red-faced with embarrassment and genuine distress. The adhesive had done its job perfectly. "Well," I said, dropping the Forest Service act, "this is awkward." Nina's eyes went wide with horror. "Alex? What are you doing here?" "Checking on my wife's team-building exercise." I pulled out my phone and took several photos. "Looks like you two are really bonding." Mark tried to lunge at me, but couldn't move more than a few inches without dragging Nina with him. "You bastard! What did you do? I helped you stick to your commitments." I sat down in the chair across from them, completely calm. "Nina, how's that new lubricant working out for you?" The realization hit her like a physical blow. You switched it. Medical-grade adhesive. It'll wear off in a few hours, but you might want to see a doctor. I hear the removal process can be uncomfortable. Mark was turning purple with rage. "I'll have you arrested." "This is assault!" "Isn't? You used a product my wife brought. I never forced you to do anything." I stood up and walked to the window. "Beautiful view. I can see why you picked this place for your affair." "It's not an affair," Nina said weakly. "We were just what? Accidentally fell into bed together? Accidentally planned a romantic weekend? Accidentally bought sexy lingerie." I turned back to them. "I printed your emails, Nina. All of them." The fight went out of her then. She sagged against Mark, who winced as the movement tugged at their connection. "What do you want?" Mark asked. "Right now? I want to watch you two figure out how to explain this to the paramedics." I headed for the door. "Oh, and Mark, you might want to call your wife. She's going to hear about this eventually." I left them there, still stuck together, still shouting threats and curses. Phase 1 was complete. Sunday morning brought the first consequences. My phone rang at 6 a.m. Nina, calling from what sounded like a hospital. "You son of a bitch," she hissed. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I helped you and Mark get closer. Isn't that what team building is about?" "They had to use a medical solvent to separate us. Mark has chemical burns. I might need skin grafts." I felt a twinge of something that might have been guilt, but it passed quickly. "Maybe next time you'll read the labels more carefully." "I'm filing for divorce and I'm taking everything. Good luck with that. I wonder what the judge will think about your team-building techniques." She hung up. By Monday morning, the story had spread through Brandforge like wildfire. I heard 3 different versions before I even got to my desk. The official story was that Mark and Nina had suffered an allergic reaction during the retreat, but the truth was juicier and impossible to contain. Cassie Morrison, Nina's assistant and office gossip queen, cornered me by the coffee machine. "Alex, I heard about Nina and Mark. Are you okay?" Cassie was 35, single, and had been carrying a torch for Mark Foster since she started at Brandforge 3 years ago. She had the kind of artificial friendliness that barely concealed her desperation to be included in office drama. "I'm fine, Cassie. Thanks for asking. It's just, people are saying some pretty crazy things." "What kind of things?" She looked around conspiratorially, then leaned closer. "They're saying Mark and Nina were, stuck together. Literally." I kept my expression neutral. "That sounds like quite a story." "You don't seem surprised." "Should I be?" Cassie studied my face, and I saw the moment she realized I knew more than I was letting on. Her expression shifted from concerned to calculating. "Maybe we should have lunch sometime," she said. "I bet you have some interesting stories to tell." "Maybe we should." Tuesday brought phase 2. I'd spent Monday evening researching Mark's habits, his schedule, his routines. The man was predictable as a Swiss watch. Every Tuesday, he took his precious Porsche to Gino's Italian for lunch, parking it in the same spot where he could watch it through the restaurant window. At 11:45 a.m., I walked into the auto parts store on 5th Street. "I need brake fluid," I told the clerk. "The good stuff." "What kind of car?" "Classic, Porsche. I want to make sure it stops when it needs to." 20 minutes later, I was in the parking lot behind Gino's, wearing coveralls I bought at Walmart and carrying a small toolbox. Mark's Porsche sat in its usual spot, gleaming in the afternoon sun. I didn't touch the brakes. I wasn't trying to kill anyone. Instead, I drained the brake fluid and replaced it with chocolate pudding. The car would still stop, but the brake system would need to be completely flushed and rebuilt. A $5,000 repair, minimum. Then I called the city's parking enforcement and reported an illegally parked vehicle blocking a fire hydrant. The hydrant was barely visible behind a small shrub, but technically, Mark's car was within 15 feet of it. I was back at my office when I heard the commotion. Through my window, I could see Gino's parking lot, where a tow truck was hooking up Mark's Porsche while he stood beside it, gesticulating wildly at a parking enforcement officer. The brake pudding wouldn't be discovered until he tried to drive his next car. Wednesday brought unexpected complications. I was working late, putting the finishing touches on a campaign for a local furniture store, when Jenna Martinez knocked on my office door. Jenna was one of Brandforge's rising stars, a sharp-eyed account executive who joined the company 2 years ago and immediately started climbing the ladder. "Alex, we need to talk." "Come in." Closed the door. Jenna was attractive in a professional way. Dark hair, serious glasses. The kind of woman who wore power suits like armor. She sat across from my desk and studied me with intelligent brown eyes. "I know what you did to Mark and Nina." My blood turned to ice, but I kept my expression neutral. "I'm not sure what you mean." "The adhesive, the brake fluid, the parking ticket." She leaned forward. "You're not as subtle as you think. That's quite an accusation." "It's not an accusation, it's an observation." She pulled out a tablet and showed me a series of photos. "Security cameras caught you in the auto parts store. Your credit card shows the purchase. And I have a friend at the hospital who confirmed the adhesive removal. I was caught." The smart play was to deny everything, lawyer up, and hope for the best. Instead, I surprised myself. "What do you want?" Jenna smiled. "I want in." "In what?" "Your revenge tour. Mark Foster screwed me over 6 months ago, stole credit for the Riverside Casino campaign, and got me passed over for promotion." Nina backed him up. She closed the tablet. "I've been waiting for someone to take them down. This isn't a game, Jenna. I could go to prison. Not if we're smart about it, and I'm very smart." I studied her face, looking for signs of deception, but saw only cold determination. "What did you have in mind?" Brandforge's annual gala is this Friday. Black tie, all the major clients, board members, media. Mark's giving the keynote speech about company values and leadership. Her smile turned predatory. "I think it's time for a more honest presentation." "What kind of presentation?" "The kind that ends careers." Thursday night, Jenna and I worked until 2 a.m. in my office, preparing what she called the nuclear option. She'd been collecting dirt on Mark and Nina for months. Expense reports that didn't add up, client meetings that never happened, creative work stolen from junior employees. "This is enough to get them fired," I said, reviewing the evidence. "Fired isn't enough. I want them destroyed. Jenna, there's something you should know. I'm not doing this for justice or office politics. I'm doing this because Nina betrayed our marriage. This is personal." "I know. That's why I trust you to see it through." At midnight, she showed me the final piece of our plan, a video compilation that would play during Mark's speech, replacing his carefully crafted presentation with something much more honest. "How did you get all this footage?" "Security cameras, phone recordings, hidden microphones. I've been planning this for months. I just needed someone with the balls to pull the trigger." Friday morning brought the calm before the storm. Nina had been staying at her sister's house since Sunday, communicating only through lawyers. She'd filed for divorce and was demanding half of everything, plus alimony. My lawyer, Dave Chen, an old college friend who specialized in messy divorces, wasn't optimistic. "She's claiming emotional distress, Alex. The adhesive thing was assault, technically. You could face criminal charges. What if I had evidence of her affair? It would help, but adultery doesn't carry the weight it used to. And if you obtained that evidence illegally? What if the evidence came from someone else?" Dave raised an eyebrow. "That would change things." The Brandforge Gala was held at the Riverside Hotel, a restored 1920s landmark downtown. The theme was Building Tomorrow's Brands, and the ballroom was decorated with silver and gold. Corporate logos projected on the walls, champagne flowing like water. I arrived at 7 p.m. in my best tuxedo, looking like just another advertising executive celebrating another successful year. Nina was there, stunning in a red dress that probably cost more than my car payment, staying close to Mark and avoiding eye contact with me. Mark looked confident as ever, glad-handing clients and board members, playing the role of successful CEO. He'd gotten his Porsche repaired and hadn't connected the brake fluid incident to me. Yet. At 8:30, Mark took the stage for his keynote address. The lights dimmed, and his presentation began. Slides about company growth, market expansion, the importance of trust in client relationships. At Brandforge, Mark said into the microphone, we believe that integrity is the foundation of everything we do. That's when Jenna triggered our surprise. The presentation screen flickered, and Mark's corporate slides were replaced by something else entirely. Security footage from the cabin. Audio recordings of Mark and Nina's private conversations. Expense reports, showing their fake business trips. The ballroom went dead silent. Mark frantically clicked his presentation remote, but nothing changed. On screen, his own voice was discussing how to hide their affair from their spouses, how to steal credit from other employees, how to manipulate client contracts for personal gain. What the hell? Mark shouted into the microphone, his voice echoing through the ballroom. The footage kept playing. Nina tried to leave, but the crowd blocked her path, everyone staring at the screens. At her. At Mark. Camera phones came out, social media posts began, then came the final clip. Audio from the cabin incident, Mark and Nina's voices clearly identifiable as they realized they were stuck together, their panic and pain obvious to everyone in the room. The ballroom erupted in chaos. Mark threw down his microphone and stormed off stage, but there was nowhere to run. Board members surrounded him, their faces grim. Clients pulled out their phones, calling their offices, canceling contracts. Nina finally broke free of the crowd and ran for the exit. I followed her. I caught up with Nina in the hotel parking lot. She was fumbling with her car keys, her hands shaking so badly she couldn't get the door open. Nina, wait! She spun around, her face streaked with tears and mascara. You bastard! You destroyed everything! I destroyed lies. The truth was already there. 22 years of marriage, Alex. Doesn't that mean anything to you? It meant everything to me. That's why this hurts so much. She sagged against her car, all the fight going out of her. I never meant for it to happen. Mark and I, it just started as flirting. Then it became more. How long? 8 months. 8 months. I felt something break inside my chest. Our anniversary was 9 months ago. We renewed our vows, remember? Promised to love and honor each other for another 20 years. I know. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, Nina. Sorry doesn't give me back the nights I lay awake wondering what I'd done wrong, why you didn't want me anymore. I did want you. I still do. This thing with Mark, it's not real. It's just excitement, adventure. You're my husband. You're my life. No, I was your safety net. Mark was your life. She reached for me, but I stepped back. I can end this, she said desperately. I'll quit Brandforge. We'll move away, start over. I'll do whatever it takes. It's too late for that. Please, Alex. I love you. You love the idea of me, the stability, the shared history, the comfortable life I provided while you were off playing with your boss. I pulled out my phone and showed her the divorce papers Dave had prepared. Sign these. What if I don't? Then I released the rest of the evidence. The financial records, the stolen client work, the tax implications of your fake business trips. Mark might survive this scandal, but he won't survive a federal investigation. Nina stared at the phone screen, reading the divorce terms. I wasn't asking for much. A clean split, no alimony, shared custody of our son Theo when he was home from college. You're really going to throw away 22 years? You already did that. I'm just cleaning up the mess. She signed the papers electronically, her finger trembling on the phone screen. I hope you're happy, she said. I'm not happy, but I'm free. She got in her car and drove away, leaving me alone in the parking lot under the streetlights. My phone buzzed with a text from Jenna. Mark just got fired. Board voted unanimously. Nina's been terminated too. It's over. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Saturday morning, I drove to Mark's house. His Porsche was in the driveway, but it looked different. Scratched, dented, like someone had taken a baseball bat to it. His wife's revenge, probably. Mark answered the door in a bathrobe, looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. His face was haggard, his eyes bloodshot. "Alex, I should have expected you. Can I come in?" He stepped aside, and I entered the house I'd only seen from the outside. It was as pretentious as I'd imagined. Modern art, expensive furniture, everything designed to impress rather than comfort. "Drink?" Mark asked, pouring himself whiskey from a crystal decanter. "Sure." We sat in his living room like old friends, two middle-aged men sharing a drink and contemplating the wreckage of their lives. "You won," Mark said finally. "Did I? My marriage is over. My wife is gone. I'm probably going to be blacklisted in the advertising industry. At least you still have your integrity." I laughed, a bitter sound. Integrity? I glued two people together and destroyed their careers. That's not integrity, Mark. That's revenge. Maybe. But they deserved it. Did Nina deserve it? Really? Or was she just a woman who made a stupid mistake and got caught up in something bigger than she could handle? Mark studied me over his whiskey glass. "You're having second thoughts. I'm having human thoughts. The kind you have when the adrenaline wears off and you realize what you've actually done." "So what now?" "Now we live with the consequences." Mark nodded and poured himself another drink. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. About Nina, about the affair, about everything. You seem like a decent guy, and you didn't deserve this. Neither did your wife. No, she didn't." He stared into his glass. "She's filing for divorce too, taking the kids, the house, half my retirement fund. I'll be lucky to afford a studio apartment when this is over." "What will you do?" "Start over, I guess. Maybe leave advertising altogether. I've got some money saved, enough to buy a small business somewhere. Hardware store, maybe. Something honest." I finished my drink and stood up. "Good luck, Mark." "You too, Alex." I was almost to the door when he called after me. "Alex, for what it's worth, Nina talked about you all the time. How smart you were, how talented, how much she respected you. I think she really did love you, but not enough to stay faithful. No, not enough for that." I left him there with his whiskey and his regrets. 3 weeks later, I was cleaning out my office at Brand Forge. The company had survived the scandal, barely. But the atmosphere had changed. Clients were nervous, employees were looking for new jobs, and the board had brought in a new CEO to restore confidence. My own position had become untenable. I wasn't fired. Technically, I hadn't done anything to the company, but everyone knew I was responsible for the gala incident. My colleagues avoided me, clients requested different account managers, and my career in advertising was effectively over. I was packing my awards and personal items when Jenna knocked on my door. "How are you holding up?" "I've been better." "You?" "I got the promotion, Senior Vice President of Accounts. Ironic, isn't it?" "Congratulations." She sat down across from my desk, the same chair where we'd planned Mark and Nina's downfall. "Any regrets?" "Every day." "Really?" I thought about it honestly. "No, not really. They made their choices. I made mine. We all have to live with the consequences." "What's next for you?" "Dave Chen offered me a job at his law firm. Investigative work. Helping with divorce cases. Apparently I have a talent for uncovering uncomfortable truths. That's perfect." "Is it?" "I'm not sure I want to spend my life destroying marriages." "You didn't destroy your marriage, Alex. Nina did that. You just revealed the truth. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was overthinking things. But as I packed the last of my belongings, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd lost something important in my quest for revenge. Not just my marriage or my career, but something essential about who I was. My phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. "Alex Pierce?" "Yes." "This is Janet Walsh from Morrison Industries. I believe you sent me some information about Brandforge a few weeks ago." The anonymous email. I'd forgotten about it in all the chaos. "I'm not sure what you mean." "Of course not. Well, I wanted to thank you. Your information helped us avoid what could have been a very expensive mistake. We were about to sign a $3 million contract with Brandforge. And now? Now we're taking our business elsewhere, to a more reliable agency. She hung up. I sat in my empty office, surrounded by boxes, thinking about the chain reaction I'd started. Mark and Nina's affair had destroyed their marriages, their careers, their reputations. But it had also cost dozens of innocent people their jobs when clients fled Brandforge. The company might not survive the year. Was that justice? Or was it just more collateral damage in my personal war? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at Rick's bar at 8 p.m. Come alone. N. Nina. After 3 weeks of silence, she wanted to meet. I almost deleted the message. We'd said everything that needed saying in the hotel parking lot. The divorce was finalized, the property divided. Our son Theo informed of our mutual decision to end our marriage. But curiosity won out. Rick's bar looked the same as always. Dim lighting, scarred wooden tables, the smell of beer and broken dreams. Nina was waiting in a corner booth, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of her usual business attire. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. "Thank you for coming," she said, as I sat down. "What do you want, Nina?" "To apologize." "Really apologize. Not just the desperate words I threw at you in the parking lot." Rick brought me a bourbon without being asked. He nodded at Nina but didn't speak. He'd never liked her, even in the good years. "I'm listening." Nina wrapped her hands around her coffee cup like she was trying to warm herself. "I've been in therapy, trying to understand why I did what I did, why I threw away everything we built together. And what did you learn? That I was scared. Scared of getting older, scared of being ordinary, scared that my life was just going to be work and marriage and routine until I died." She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "Mark made me feel young again, desired, important. I made you feel ordinary? No. You made me feel safe. And I took that for granted. We sat in silence for a while. Two people who'd shared half their lives trying to make sense of how it all went wrong. I lost my job," she said finally. "I know. I'm working at a marketing firm in St. Paul now. Half the salary, no benefits. I had to move in with my sister." "I'm sorry." "Are you?" "Really?" I considered the question honestly. "Yes, I wanted you to face consequences for what you did, but I didn't want to destroy your life." "What's the difference?" "I don't know anymore." Nina reached across the table and touched my hand. I didn't pull away. "I know you'll probably never forgive me," she said, "but I want you to know that I loved you. I still love you. What I did with Mark, it wasn't about love. It was about ego and fear and stupidity. But you did it anyway. I did it anyway." I finished my bourbon and stood up. "Take care of yourself, Nina." "Alex, wait." She grabbed my arm. "Is there any chance? Could we ever try again? Not now, but someday?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the woman I'd fallen in love with 24 years ago. The ambitious young account executive who'd charmed clients and stolen my heart. She was still there, underneath the guilt and regret and desperation. "No," I said gently, "we can't go back." "Because you can't forgive me?" "Because I can't trust you. And without trust, love is just a word." I left her there in the booth, crying quietly into her coffee. Outside, the October air was crisp and clean. I walked to my car, thinking about second chances and the price of revenge. I'd gotten what I wanted. Nina and Mark had paid for their betrayal. But the victory felt hollow, like winning a game that nobody should have been playing. My phone rang. Dave Chen. "Alex, I just got off the phone with the district attorney's office. They're not pressing charges for the adhesive incident." "Why not?" "Insufficient evidence of intent to harm." Apparently, Mark and Nina aren't eager to testify about the circumstances of their accident. That's good news. There's more. I got a call from Peterson and Associates. They're the biggest divorce firm in the state. They want to offer you a job. Seems your reputation for thorough investigation has gotten around. What kind of job? Senior investigator. 6-figure salary, full benefits, company car. They handle high-profile divorces for celebrities, politicians, wealthy executives. People who can afford the best. People like me. People like you used to be. I thought about it as I drove home to my empty house. A new career. A fresh start. A chance to use my skills for something productive instead of destructive. But first, I had one last piece of business to handle. Sunday morning, I drove to the cemetery where my father was buried. He'd been a simple man, a mechanic who'd worked with his hands, loved his family, and never cheated on anyone in his life. His grave was marked with a modest headstone that read, Robert Pierce, loving husband and father. I sat on the grass beside his grave and told him the whole story. About Nina's affair, about my revenge, about the choice between forgiveness and justice. I talked for an hour, working through feelings I'd been suppressing for weeks. When I was done, I felt lighter somehow. Not forgiven, I wasn't sure I deserved that, but clearer about what came next. I called Dave Chen and accepted the job at Peterson & Associates. Monday morning, I started my new life as a professional destroyer of marriages. The irony wasn't lost on me, but it felt right somehow. I understood betrayal now, understood the rage and pain that drove people to hire investigators like me. I could help them find the truth, even if the truth was ugly. My first case was a tech executive who suspected his wife of embezzling from their joint accounts. The second was a politician's wife who thought her husband was selling government contracts to his friends. The third was a young mother who discovered her husband's secret gambling addiction. Each case was different, but the emotions were the same. The shock of betrayal, the hunger for truth, the desire for justice or revenge. I was good at the work, better than I'd been at advertising. Maybe because I understood the stakes now, understood what it meant when trust broke down and people started keeping secrets. 6 months later, I was reviewing files in my new office when my assistant knocked on the door. Mr. Pierce? There's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important. Send her in. The woman who entered was elegant, well-dressed, probably in her 40s. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. Mr. Pierce, I'm Catherine Foster, Mark's wife. Mark's ex-wife, technically. Their divorce had been finalized 2 months ago. What can I do for you, Mrs. Foster? I want to hire you. For what? She sat down across from my desk, composed and determined. Mark is trying to hide assets from the divorce settlement. He's got money stashed somewhere, and I want you to find it. Why me specifically? Because you destroyed him once already. I figure you know how his mind works. I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. Catherine Foster was attractive in a refined way. The kind of woman who'd married young and built her life around her husband's success. The kind of woman Nina might have become if she'd made different choices. I'll need a retainer, I said. How much? $10,000. She wrote the check without hesitation. There's something else, she said. I want you to know that I don't blame you for what happened to my marriage. Mark made his choices. You just exposed them. Thank you. I also want you to know that Nina Pierce called me last week. That surprised me. What did she want? To apologize. She said she was sorry for her part in destroying our families, and she wanted to make amends if possible. What did you tell her? I told her that apologies don't undo damage, but they're a start. Catherine Foster left me with her check and her case files. I spent the rest of the day thinking about Nina, about apologies and second chances, about the long road between betrayal and forgiveness. That evening, I called Rick's bar. Is Nina Pierce there? I asked when Rick answered. Yeah, she's here. Been coming in every Sunday for the past month. Sits in the same booth, drinks coffee, reads a book. Never talks to anyone. What's she reading? Self-help stuff mostly, books about starting over. Tell her I said good luck. That's it? That's it. I hung up and went back to work. I had cases to solve, secrets to uncover, truths to reveal. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was the life I'd chosen, and for the first time in months, that felt like enough. 2 years later, I was the most successful investigator at Peterson & Associates. I'd helped dozens of clients uncover the truth about their spouses, their business partners, their children. Some of those truths led to reconciliation. Others led to divorce courts and criminal charges. I'd learned to live with the ambiguity. I was working late on a Friday evening when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I hadn't seen in years. Hello, Alex. Hello, Theo. My son. 21 years old now, a junior at Northwestern, studying business. We'd maintained a relationship after the divorce, but it was strained. He blamed me for destroying the family, and maybe he was right. I'm getting married, he said. Congratulations. When? Next spring. I wanted to ask, would you walk me down the aisle? I know things have been weird between us, but you're still my dad. I'd be honored. Good. There's something else. I've been talking to Mom. How is she? Better. She's got a new job, a nice apartment. She's been seeing a therapist. She's different. More honest, I guess. I'm glad. She asked me to tell you something. What? She said to tell you that she understands now why you did what you did. She said she would have done the same thing if the situation were reversed. I sat in silence, processing that information. Dad, you still there? I'm here. She also said to tell you that she hopes you're happy. And what did you tell her? I told her I'd ask you. Are you happy, Dad? I looked around my office. The awards on the wall, the case files on my desk, the photographs of successful investigations. I thought about my new life, my new career, the respect I'd earned in a field that dealt in ugly truths and broken promises. I'm content, I said finally. That's enough. Good. That's what I hoped you'd say. After Theo hung up, I sat in my office thinking about the past 2 years, about the choices that had led me here. I'd started out wanting revenge, and ended up finding a different kind of purpose. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Mr. Pierce, I need your help. My husband is having an affair, and I want proof. Can we meet tomorrow? Sarah. Chen. Another case. Another betrayed spouse. Another chance to uncover the truth, no matter how painful. I typed back, my office, 10 a.m. Bring a retainer check. Then I packed up my files and headed home to my small apartment, where I'd spend the weekend preparing for another week of investigating other people's secrets. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was a life built on truth, and after everything I'd been through, truth felt like the most valuable commodity in the world.